31. On the way back to the underground hub, everyone was fairly silent. Chesney idly handled the sword they had found there, tracing its curves with his fingers. But mostly he was thinking about the past. Just as Medea had predicted, this laboratory had been in the northwestern part of SS Quat, not too far from when they had entered the continent, from the underground caves. Now he wondered if those caves had connected somehow to the many ancient ruins left behind by the Great Ones. How different would their journey have been then? In the upper floors, similarly abandoned and surrounded by mountains, they had found another sword for Chesney to use, and another bottle of megacetaphone. But the revelations had taken some of the joy out of the occasion, and the journey back was a somber one. Something had happened between Sophie and Gabnid. Something had happened to Cormu, and they had just been witness to the final, desperate chance that Sophie took to try to stop whatever was about to happen from happening. Of course it felt a little gross prying into the personal lives of people he'd looked up to his entire life, seeing an intimate and private moment that nobody would ever want shared. But he also knew that, mired in their problems as he was, there was no escaping it. Whatever had happened, and whatever was going to happen, this puzzle would need to be solved before he could finally be free from the terrible burden he was still crushed under. Once more he looked at the sword. The Sword of Wind, as Nails had called it, was indeed a Reagan weapon, but not in the same way that Cormu's was. If Cormu's weapon was a sword, then this was a mere stick in comparison. Still, there was magic in it, or technology. Something within it made the blade as light as a feather in his hand, and it cut with a force that seemed impossible. All the amazing technology of the Immortals of Rega was incredible to wield, and maybe the two fantastical weapons they had found for him in the underground would be better to use. But energy weapons and flamethrowers could never be as familiar to him now as the feel of a sword in his hand. It was not his familiar and well-missed weapon, but it was comforting to hold. Medea had been especially silent and forlorn on the trip back. He could not fathom what was in her mind in that moment, what it must have been like for her to hear her counterpart reach out over the eons like that. He wanted to reach out to her, to hold her hand, touch her shoulder, and let her know he was there for her. But that was a selfish feeling in this situation. He knew her, knew that in this moment, what she truly needed was time. And he gave it. The sound of that woman's voice echoed in her mind still, over and over. She desperately clung to every hitch of the voice, every word choice, every small sound, searching desperately for the hidden meanings behind all the things said and unsaid. For ages she had searched and hoped. She needed a way to understand herself and Sophie and the connection between them, and at last she had a clue that was not just a ghost of a feeling. Nothing. When she first heard Sophie's voice, her breath had caught in her throat, and a part of her wondered if it would suddenly unleash some feeling or memory or knowledge. But it didn't. And so she then hoped there was some clue in her words that would explain how she ended up washed up on the shores of Ratsurt 10,000 years after the fact. Nothing. Instead, she heard the woman that millions had pledged their hopes, their dreams, their lives to. Heard her try and fail to take back something that never could be taken back. She learned that there was so much more to the Immortals of Rega than she could have ever imagined. It confused her. Only now did she truly wonder, what should I be doing? The Regans had plans for Lennis long ago. What if they did again? What side would she be on? Would she be forced to decide who was right and who was wrong? Be forced to make some choice without ever knowing the full consequences? For the first time she really felt Chesney's misgivings about the power they wielded. Presumably until something had changed between them. Sophie had approved of whatever plan this had been. If she had been in Sophie's shoes, would she have tried to restrain that power? Or revel in it? Listening to Sophie beg Gabnid to return home filled her with too many feelings for her to properly sort them all. When it all came down to it, the thoughts her mind danced around to avoid the feeling of blasphemy was this. Why didn't she do something? Why did she only ask him to stop, begged him to, but not made him? She realized now she was angry. After Sophie had failed, something had happened. Something awful, and Sophie had let it. What was the use of having all that power and not using it? What tragedies could have been avoided if Medea had been in Sophie's place? These were the thoughts she was having, and they scared her. She no longer worried that she was too much like Sophie, and that part of her was not her. Now she worried she wasn't nearly enough like her. She could already hear what Chesney would tell her if she asked him about it. That Sophie had her way of doing things, and Medea had hers. That maybe a different approach was needed at different times. But she wouldn't allow herself to believe those things. If she had fallen into the hands of Zagos as a baby, would she have become his perfect little soldier? Would she have looked up to him as a father, agreed with his strength and pragmatism? Where had she gotten the compassionate side of her? Was it from her parents, her village? Or was it a part of who she was? Was she truly worthy to be Sophie's successor at all? Home. Gods, how she missed home. Knowing where they were going next, how close she would be to them again, her heart ached to see her father once more, to talk about her mother and visit her grave and ask if she had been a good daughter, if she was truly worthy. And her people. How had they gotten along without her these months? For just a moment she struggled to remember the name of the little girl who had just been born half a year ago. She felt so guilty that she had abandoned them for so long. Felt guilty that more than anything she had wanted to abandon them, to find what her place in the world had been, what it could be without them. Suddenly her skin was cold and full of needles, and she just wanted to be off and run there. The impossibly fast craft could not travel fast enough, and she could not stop herself from imagining every possible tragedy befalling her home.
Chesney, we need to hurry,
she whispered, breaking the long silence.
I'm really worried about Retsert.
He looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite piece together right then, and he said that they'd head straight there and figure out their next step after. She thanked him, but it did nothing to quell the unease inside her. When they finally arrived in the underground, it took everything she had to not run ahead and force the door of water open. Another group of malfunctioning admin robots blocked their way, but they were utterly smashed apart. She didn't have time for games. Quickly, she pressed her dress onto the hidden panel, and the door opened and revealed yet another tunnel crafted. She prayed with everything she had that she was right, and it would take them to the Tower of Gabnid. Then she wondered, how must that real possibility be affecting Chesney? To finally return to the most traumatizing event of his life? He'd spent weeks literally throwing himself into danger after danger, half hoping this time he would be killed and the guilt would be lifted. And now, after they had fought so hard to find the tools of his redemption, to lose them and stand before the tower once again, empty-handed. Was he also feeling like a failure? Was he also feeling defective? Or was he doing what she could not, silently bearing it like he always did? Another wave of guilt hooked itself into her gut self. She should be there for him, holding his hand, telling him it would be okay, that there must be another way to destroy it. But she knew if she tried now it would feel forced and patronizing. She was too locked up in her own feelings. She cursed her own weakness, hoped he could forgive her. For now she just needed time. Soon, and almost fast enough, the craft came to a rest, and the air here felt heavy. There was some force or presence here she'd never ever felt. It felt like her body was dragging her to the ground, like all she needed to do was stop and lie down, and that she deserved to die for the things she had done. But it wasn't coming from within her. It was coming from without. Something out here was pressing down on her like a bug, ready to press down and turn her into paste and grind her bones into dustwood.
What is this? Healing?
She gasped, feeling almost paralyzed by it. Mouth looked confused more than anything, but Chesney was almost totally doubled over and took a sharp, gasping breath. Eventually, though, he pushed himself back up slowly and squared his shoulders.
You don't recognize it?
He said, the strain still plain in his voice.
This is what Noigren felt like. Only more.
With sudden realization and memory, she realized he was right. Was this how it had felt to Chesney when he had first awoken? Broken on the ground, surrounded by the burning fires of his home? If it had, she no longer wondered why such a strong, brave man had worked to grind himself into dust on the grindstone of his own burden. If she stayed here much longer, she would fall to her knees and wait for the world to swallow her up.
Friend Chesney, friend Medea, this is where we part.
It was Nails.
What? What? Are you sure, Nails?
Chesney asked, and the robot slowly nodded.
My place is not out there. I must stay here, and I fear that wherever your journey takes you next, I will only be a burden to you.
It bowed and made to re-enter the craft.
Wait!
It was Chesney's voice.
I have 2 questions for you.
He fished out a device that Medea hadn't seen before. Any other time she would have wondered where he got it, but the strain on her mind was too great to idly wonder anything.
What is this device? What does it do? I meant to ask you earlier.
It looked at it, then said,
This is a global surveillance interface. It ties into the same network that is used by your map. It also uses a neural interface.
At Chesney's bewildered expression, it continued.
You need only press your hand to the crevice on the bottom and think of someone you know very well. They are alive and well and receptive. They can be contacted and in some cases even brought to you. But using it will destroy the device. It is single-use only, initially designed as a portable rescue.
Chesney looked at it for a long time, then put it away.
One last thing. What does the name Dahlgren mean in Reigen?
Nails seemed frozen as it considered its response.
It is a literary reference to a piece of ancient culture I could not completely explain to you. There is no real direct translation. Old, final, empty, grudge. These are all possible meanings to Dao. If I had to choose, it would mean either the final machine or perhaps the empty machine.
Eventually, Chesney nodded.
Thanks, Nails, for everything. Good luck, friend Chesney. Friend Medea, be safe. May you live forever.
Nails bid farewell with a strange gesture that seemed cultural, and they watched as the automaton re-entered the craft and sped away. When Chesney looked at the exit, he said,
I finally remember where I'd seen these symbols before. You're right. We're right under the Tower of Gabnid. These are the unopenable doors that stood just outside the tower entrance.
He pushed open the door in the wall, revealing a small set of stairs up to another door, and then they were outside. Outside in hell. That feeling that had nearly crushed her down below was near doubled in strength. She heaved, almost losing what little food she had eaten lately. Loathing. Some force was in the air, utterly filled with an indescribable loathing, and she tried to look up, to see that shining tower of Gabnid closer than she'd ever seen it from home. See its strange, metallic crystal structure ablaze in color, but looking beyond a glimpse gave her a headache and sent the world spinning in. She looked up to Mouth, who was looking at both children with concern.
You don't feel this?
She asked, her voice squeaking under the strain. It looked like he was concentrating, almost listening to something on the wind, but he shook his head.
I don't know. I can tell that nothing good happened here, but I don't feel ill or anything. You look positively ashen, girl. You don't feel like none of this is worth it? Like you suddenly hate everything about yourself? And why are you even doing this in the first place? And why don't you just lie down and die?
At her words, Chesney swallowed hard, and his breathing caught in his throat. But Mouth only looked more confused.
No, well, I don't know. You know, it's funny, I can't actually remember feeling happy. I know there was something today. Maybe?
Medea pushed herself up.
Chesney, we can't stay here, we need to move now. Yeah,
The sky was the bright orange of sunset. Only with the atmosphere of this vile place, it simply seemed like every horizon was consumed by raging flames. When the sky darkened further, she wanted to be nowhere near this wretched place of death. Together they staggered away from their ultimate destination, knowing that it was the cause of everything, but maddeningly unable to do anything about it. Not as they were. Not yet, but somewhere, someone must know what else they could do. They just had to go, and try again. But the hour felt late. So very, very late. Maybe too late.
Chesney, is that you?
Beside her, Chesney gasped and turned. His face was at once stricken and hopeful.
Headmaster.
Just by the entrance, next to a small structure that had been cleared away and used as a makeshift shelter, they found Headmaster Dakin. The old man had thinned, though he was still quite fat, but it didn't lay upon his body, making him look jolly. It seemed to drag him down and make his already wizened features look wretched and old. Medea's heart felt bruised, seeing the old man that had always visited her reduced to this. Standing in the bones of the magic school she had always so desperately wished to attend, she was struck once again with a profound feeling of loss. While this had been the first blow against Linus's peace, she felt it again this time as keenly as when she had heard it had fallen the first time. Chesney's face twisted in happiness and worry, and he ran to his old teacher and embraced him.
Thank goodness you're unhurt.
Medea wondered if what he had witnessed underground had made him rethink his exclamation. Truthfully, she shared in that feeling, but right now she just couldn't process it.
Oh my boy, my sweet boy, you've no idea how terribly I've worried after you these long months. And word has reached me that you defeated Noegren. Come sit. Tell me of everything.
The old man prepared seats for all four of them in his cramped shelter. Mouth had of course heard of what had happened to the school, but standing here in the ruins turned him quite somber, and he was content to only listen to the exchange between the headmaster and Chesney. The young man related his travels, though Medea noticed he left out many of the most problematic parts of their journey. She didn't blame him. She knew the guilt he felt, and there was no reason to pile judgment upon him for it now. When he had finished, Chesney asked,
Headmaster, why are you still here?
He gestured out towards the ruins.
There's nothing left this place. It's not healthy. Oh, I know, my boy, I know.
The old man wheezed.
At first I stayed only to bury those whom I could, and perform the proper rites. But something here, it got me, stuck in me, holds me here. I can't explain it.
He looked at his old withered hands.
Things here in Nasquat have not been well, Chesney. Not well at all.
Medea's breath caught.
Sir, what of Ratzer?
His sad gaze found hers, and he could not speak. Could not lie, could not tell her the truth. But she knew something terrible had happened, and her heart was crushed by guilt and worry.
Listen, you two. With Noegren gone, there's no doubt in my mind that Zagos will try to find some way to use Dahlgren. But he has no idea what this thing is capable of.
He turned back to look at the beautiful, hideous tower of Gabnid.
Something in there awoke that day, Chesney. Something that slept for those long thousands of years awoke, and now is conscious and gaining power every moment. I don't know how, but I can feel it in my bones, in my mind. And not just me. Slowly, everything is being corrupted by it.
He cringed away from looking at the tower further.
It will corrupt Zagos too. He'll think he is in control, but this hideous machine will twist his ambitions even further, and he will destroy the entire world. I know that. I can feel that terrible presence bearing down on us right now. That's why you need to leave, please. I don't have the items of Cormu. I can't stop it yet. Please, you need to be away from here.
Chesney begged.
I know, child. I know. But I am glad I was here to see you once again, because I think I know what you should do next.
He took Chesney's hands in his.
You are ready now. Whatever your fates hold in store for you now, I know that it begins in your hometown, Chesney. Find your mother. There is one final secret. The secret of your birth that may hold the key to finally finding the power to stop Dahlgren.
His eyes searched the headmaster's.
You knew. No, not everything. But, enough. I'm sorry I couldn't say anything before. Why Daphne couldn't say anything before. You must understand, my boy, it was not our secret to tell.
He stood then and pointed west.
Go, Chesney. Don't worry about this old man, there's no time. Find your mother. Take the rope network and rat circ and go north. It's fixed now. About the only blasted thing left working on the continent.
Before they left, he took one last moment to hold them both in a weak embrace.
I believe in you both. My faith is in you. I know you can do this together. Now go, and do not look back.
At that, they abandoned the old man to whatever hold the ancient machine had on him, and headed west. Outside of the vicinity of the ancient Tower of Gabnid, the pressure on their minds gradually lessened, but never truly went away. She could see Chesney's face as they walked side by side, saw that all too familiar look in his eyes that told her he was reaching a breaking point. Was he seeing things again? Hallucinating the faces of his dead friends? A part of her wanted to reach out to him, reassure him, but it was overshadowed by her own mounting worry. Already she could see rat circ in the darkening twilight. Already see that there were no lights where there should be. New scorch marks scoured the earth. No birds chirped in the trees. No small animals scurried before them. Dead. Everything felt dead. Her breathing quickened. So did her pace.
I have to see. I have to know. Hold on, don't run ahead.
Mouth called, beginning to make chase. Wordlessly, Chesney kept pace with her. When they reached the outer pastures and found them abandoned, overgrown, she stopped. A cold, desolate wind was blowing, and it felt like it blew right through her skin and touched her soul. Chesney took her hand and squeezed it. Would not let go. She knew deep down that he must be hurting too. Knew the guilt that must be gnawing at his heart. Knew accepting this gesture was so selfish when she had done nothing to support him in this. But she held on to that hand like a lifeline, for fear she would be blown away. She took a step, forced herself to go further, forced herself to see what had happened since she had abandoned this place. Everything was stillness. Homes of the people she knew, grew up with, were broken and abandoned.
This was Tuka's home,
she said, standing by a wooden home that looked like it had cracked in half. Inside was nothing but dust and long abandoned furniture.
Where is she? Where is her family?
She walked to another wreck of a home.
This is where Mr. Shopkeeper lived. I always had a hard time pronouncing his name as a little girl, so that's what I always called him. Where is he? Where is his wife?
She clutched at her cloak, squeezing it so hard her fingers ached. Her terrified eyes searched all around the town square.
Someone, anyone, are you here? Please. Midia, is that you?
Said a voice that came from somewhere off to the side, and to her immense relief she saw that it was Miss Chaw. The home she crawled out of was dark, but intact.
Oh, thank the great ones you're safe, girl. Why in the world are you back here?
They ran together and embraced.
It's a long story. Too long.
Midia could barely get out the words, but had to ask.
What happened?
Shaw's expression faltered, and it looked like she was struggling to even find where to begin in. At last she said,
Oh, it was okay. For a while. Just, people started to get a little off. More and more rumors came, people got to talking. Then it turned to arguments. They found out who activated Dahlgren.
She offered a sympathetic glance at Chesney.
After that it got bad. People turned on the mayor for letting you go with Chesney.
Midia gasped and covered her mouth.
No, please don't tell me. I can't.
Quickly, Shao added.
No, nothing like that, he's okay.
She held her tight again.
He's okay. As okay as any of us, I suppose. Only there was just something in the air. We stopped working together. We stopped working at all. People began to just disappear. Some folks just left the town and kept walking, nothing on their back. Others, well, they gave up. And nobody stopped them?
She asked, her voice tight, face wet. Miss Chow opened her mouth and closed it. She struggled to find something to say. At last she just said lamely while looking away,
"No, I guess we didn't. Who else is left?" "Well, there's me, your father, those 2 mercenaries, and amazingly that crotchety old fart, Mr. Bolt. Maybe a few more, I'm not sure."
She seemed to think for a moment, and then knelt down closer to Midia's level and whispered,
"Now listen. I know this is hard, but I need you both to not go running around here, looking for people."
Midia's expression turned horrified.
"Why?" "Midia, some people, they blame Chesney. If they see him, who knows what they'll do. Not only that, but some of them got it in their fool heads he kidnapped you too." But that's insane."
She couldn't keep the angry incredulity out of her voice, and Chow shushed her as gently as she could.
"I know that, of course I do. But things are changing here. People aren't in their right minds anymore. And I know you don't want to hurt anyone, but they might make you. So leave them to me and your father, okay?"
She swallowed and nodded.
"I have to see him, please." "Of course he's at home. Run, little firecracker, and don't linger in this cursed place,"
she urged, pushing her on to Mayor Malspar's house, watching them go. She whispered to herself,
"Don't look back, girl."
Midia ran to her home and threw open the door like she was possessed.
Dad, are you here?"
The dual home and office was dark, and looked like it hadn't been lived in for ages. Dust coated every surface. No plates or cups sat on anything. No food or candles. All the drapes had been drawn. She ran upstairs.
"Dad." "Midia."
There was a voice, coming from a shadow by the far window. She practically leapt over the desk and plowed into her father, squeezing him tight to make sure he was real. She wanted to thank anyone who would listen that her father was still alive, but it all came out as a jumbled mess of sobs and tears.
"Oh my stars. Midia, it's really you. I thought I had finally gone mad like the rest,"
her father said, his voice as tired and weak as the day he had asked Chesney to search for his one and only child. But he found his strength and returned her embrace.
"You're safe, you're really safe. Oh, Sophie's mercy be praised. I've been so worried."
When they finally separated, the old man bashed about the room, gathering and lighting candles, finding small bits of dry stale food and setting it on his desk for them to share. They took turns talking about what things had happened, to both of them. Much of what they learned from him was the same as it had been explained by Miss Chow. Rat Cirque was essentially doomed. The populace was dead or missing, or just waiting for the world to end. He had tried to hold things together as much as he could, but it was like the people changed, and nothing he could do seemed to stop it.
And then slowly, whatever started to affect everyone else got to me too.
His voice sounded so frail.
"I don't remember the last time I left that spot,"
he said, looking over to the spot by the window he had been looking out of.
"All I remember is just waiting to see you, looking for you. But if I didn't even see you come into town, I don't know what I've been doing. All I know is I can't leave. Even if I wanted to, I feel like something has got me. Keeps me here, right there."
Even as he said it, the mayor gave the spot near the window a longing look, but then turned back to his daughter.
"You, all of you, it's late. Stay the night. Then do as the headmaster says. If he believes it is the best thing to do, I know it's right."
At that, they all settled down with their bedrolls downstairs. There wasn't much conversation between Chesney, Midia, and Mouth. The house seemed haunted almost, and speaking so unnatural here. After a time, though, she got up.
"What's wrong?"
Chesney whispered.
"I don't know. I think I need to stay with him. I can't sleep. I just keep thinking he'll disappear if I look away, and I can't stop worrying." "It's okay. Go on up. I'll set my roll in front of the door too, just in case.
She breathed a huge sigh of relief and kissed his forehead.
Thank you.
She came upstairs, and though she'd tucked her own father into bed an hour ago, he was there, back at the window. Slowly, quietly, she joined him there.
What are you watching for?
She whispered.
Oh, my daughter Midia, she's supposed to come home today.
He whispered.
I'm watching for her.
She swallowed hard.
It sounds lonely. I'll watch with you, okay? Oh, thank you. That sounds lovely.
It was the next morning, and the sun had yet to even crest the horizon before Midia came downstairs and woke them.
Chesney, I'm...
She tried to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. She swallowed again, took a breath.
We need to go. If I stay here, if I see him again, I'll never be able to leave.
She saw Chesney's face change, saw the worry, the turning of his mind. His mouth opened, and she knew what he would say. She pressed her fingers to his lips.
No, don't say it. If you say it, No, we have to go. Now.
He nodded to her and mouthed. They packed up quietly and were standing outside in the frigid morning in moments. There, just barely visible against the brightening sky, was the rope network building. There was a weak-sounding churning sound coming from it, and the rope swayed in the wind, bobbing from the weight of empty carriages. It was then that she remembered.
Wait,
she said, and turned her head south.
I need to check on something.
The boys shrugged and followed. Halfway there, Chesney seemed to understand where they were going, because he muttered,
Oh no.
Her face twisted in bitterness. She stood in front of the tavern. It looked mostly intact, but there was no noise at all coming through the dark windows. Mouth looked at Chesney. Chesney just shook his head.
An old wound she's about to rip wide open.
She ignored him and pressed inside. And there they were. There they fucking were. The place was empty save for 2 sleeping men. Bottle upon bottle was heaped beside them, scattered on every surface. A silver-haired Laffrey and a young Skuru mercenary.
You!
She screamed, and they started awake. The Skuru completely fell out of his chair, but the Laffrey had reacted in time to save himself the embarrassment.
Ah! Oh, Miss Midia and Mr. Chesney,
the Laffrey said.
Please don't be so loud.
He rubbed his forehead and winced.
Woof, it's way too freaking early for this.
The other man said, picking himself up from the floor.
Oh hey, it's you guys, what's up? What's up?
She said. She grit her teeth and stomped up to him and slapped him out of his chair again.
What's up? My home is fucking gone. Whoa, settle down.
He yelled, scrambling to his feet and holding his cheek.
We didn't do anything. Exactly.
She screamed.
You did nothing, and now everything I cared about is gone. Hold on, Midia, wait.
The Laffrey said, putting up his hands, trying to keep things calm.
My name is Hawk. I heard about what was going on from the headmaster of the magic school. I've even heard rumors about you and everything you've both accomplished, and frankly, I'm amazed. I know it's a little late, but I wanted to join you. I wanted to apologize for before as well. I hoped if I stayed here, I'd see you both again.
Mouth raised an eyebrow.
Well, if this is the Hawk I know about, he would be an extremely powerful ally. He might very well be the greatest mercenary I've ever heard of, if the things I've heard about him are true. Mouth, I presume? Your reputation precedes you as well.
Hawk looked even more impressed. He turned to the children and nodded.
Indeed. I am a skilled fighter, and a master spiritualist. I have mastered all elements save air and sphere. If you'll have me, I would join you on your quest. Just like that? No fee this time? My quest is worthy of you now.
Chesney asked, his expression undisguised mistrust.
Well, I'd want a fee. Name's Peppy, by the way.
The Skuru said, sitting back down and rubbing his cheek.
You're not helping.
Hawk hissed. He looked at Chesney with real sincerity.
And, yes, just like that. I'm sorry for what I said to you before. I'm sorry I let you go off alone. In all honesty, I thought it was a simple case of a young girl taking the time to get some freedom.
Medea uttered an outraged growl, and Hawk winced.
Yes, I admit my judgment was not the best, and I want to make up for that now. May I join you? I won't tell you both what to do,
Mouth said.
But that's not an offer you're likely to ever see again in your lifetime.
As angry as she was, she looked to Chesney, and he looked to her. She knew her anger was overriding her judgment, was daring him to call her out on it so she could yell at him too. She could tell that he was tempted by Hawk's offer, even knew it was the right call. All she wanted to do was yell and scream and tear back at the world for what was taken from her. There was a long pause where Chesney closed his eyes and did not speak. Suddenly she just knew what would happen next. He would say it wasn't his decision and let her decide. Say he would support whatever she wanted to do. And damn her, she would hate him for it. Hate him for letting her hurt the mission to satisfy her own foolish pride. Or hate him for making her kill her own rage just to do the right thing. Knew it wasn't fair how she was putting him in a situation where there was no real solution, and then blaming him when he failed. But there was a part of her that just could not let go. This was her home, and it was just gone. Someone was to blame. Even if someone wasn't, somehow there had to be. Because if it wasn't someone else, then it was her. It was her fault. That she left, that she didn't protect them. And she couldn't touch that idea, had to leave it laying there in the dirt, or she would grab it and never be able to let it go. She would stab it into her chest and bleed out until she was nothing but dusted.
No.
She gasped when she realized it had been Chesney's voice, and not her own.
You waited all this time just to apologize to us?
He asked.
You call this an apology?
He gestured emphatically everywhere.
You sat here drinking and let the whole town march slowly into its own demise, and you did nothing?
There was another long pause as Hawk tried to find the words. At last he looked away and said quietly,
You're right. I don't know what happened. It all happened so slowly, and then I looked up and...
He gestured half-heartedly at the bar.
It was like this, and there was nothing. Well...
Chesney set his jaw and nodded at Hawk.
I appreciate you admitting you were wrong, Hawk. But no, we don't need you.
He put an arm on her shoulder and she let him gently ease her towards the door. Then he stopped.
Oh, and Peppy? Eh? Yeah.
Chesney scowled and gave him the middle finger.
Fuck you.
After that, he led them outside, led them towards the rope network. But every step was chipping pieces of her rage away and replacing them with grief and guilt. He had done the hard thing. Took that burden on himself, whatever the consequences might be. Let her keep her rage. Ever since they had arrived at the magic school, she had seen just how badly he had been affected. How utterly crushed he had been to be back there, to see those ruins again. To see his headmaster wasting away. To see how Dahlgren's influence had obliterated her home. How had he been holding on this whole time? And even after shouldering all of that, he had taken on even more for her by refusing Hawk's offer so she didn't need to feel that guilt.
Why?
Her feet stopped moving, and as their arms grew taut, she held him from moving on.
Why did you do that? You knew it was the right call to take him. We don't need people like him.
He didn't turn around, just stayed facing forward, waiting for her to join him. A lie. They did, and he was still taking on her burdens and pretending he wasn't, putting up this facade just to spare her feelings even further.
Don't lie to me. We promised. Remember?
A pause.
Because I love you. Even if it's the wrong call to make? Even if it hurts the world?
Another pause.
Yeah.
He meant it. She could tell. He had weighed her against the world, and she had won.
You You idiot.
She came to him and grabbed his shoulders and pressed her forehead into his back.
You big stupid idiot.
She didn't have any tears left right now, but if she did, they would be falling to the ground.
I love you too.
And she whispered something so quietly only she could hear.
I don't deserve you, but I love you too.
They stayed like that for almost a whole minute. Then he tilted his head.
Besides, we really don't need people like that. I have an idea. What? What?
He turned and raised an eyebrow at her.
Do you trust me? Shut up. Of course I do. You know I do. Then, I want to try something.
He fished in his bag and brought out the device he had found in the life-form research laboratory and had shown to Nails.
Maybe we don't need to find more help. Maybe we can bring help to us. Mouth, could you hold this steady for me? Sure, like this.
He took the device and held his arms to make something like a table for it to rest on.
Perfect.
Chesney opened the device and stared at the hand-shaped recess. His hand hovered over it.
I have to do this right. It only works once.
She looked it over. She honestly didn't really remember what it was for. She hadn't seen him grab it, and she wasn't exactly paying attention when Nails talked about it.
What does it do? Honestly, I'm not sure, but it sounded like we could find people, talk to them through this, and maybe more. Isn't that right, old man? Huh, it's too early to call me an old man, you little runt.
Mouth laughed.
But yes, I have seen a device like this before. Just put your hand on it and concentrate on who you want to talk to.
Chesney turned to her.
You know who I'm going to look for, right? What? How would I know? Wait, do you mean Daphne?
He shook his head.
No, try again. Come on, use that noggin.
Who could help us? Obviously it would be someone we both knew, so that ruled out anyone from his hometown. Who else have we met? All we've met are mercenaries, and people who have fought with us of their own will. Is that it? But if that's the case, everyone we've said goodbye to had good reasons for leaving. They weren't strong enough, or they had to leave for their own reasons, or we fired them. He smiled in that annoying way he always did when he thought he had figured out something before her.
I can see you're getting close. Come on, keep thinking.
Had anyone regretted leaving? Maybe Dan and Zoran. But there's no way they could handle what we need to face next. And Wild, she was back home where she needed to be. I would hate to yank her away from being safe after she risked her life to protect us like that. He has to be thinking of someone strong, fiery. But no, she could be dead. Who did that leave? Chakan? Oh? And Blades. And... She gasped. Lily. Who else would want to have another chance to fight?
It's Lily, isn't it?
At his expression, she knew she was right.
Are you sure about this? How do we even know she got away? Honestly, I don't know. But I have to believe that Chakan could do it. Or maybe she got captured and is sitting in some camp somewhere. I figure if anyone would want to fight with us again, it would be her. But that's not the only reason I picked her. What do you mean? She had real potential. Do you remember how hard she fought beside us? Did you see how much she endured and kept getting back up to fight? And she had only just met us. And then she was forced to escape without us. She might not have as many spirits as we do, but with the equipment she has, she's almost as strong as us.
He had a point. Several, in fact. But there was something still nagging in her mind. Something she could not leave unvoiced.
But can we really do that to her? Draw her back into this fight? What if she escaped? What if she's happy? Could you really do that to another person?
He closed his eyes and breathed out a long breath.
Yeah, I get that. But the more I keep thinking about it, the more I feel like this is the right move. The only move. And there's one thing you haven't considered. Oh, what's that? She already knows what's at stake. This isn't like with Wild, who got brought into this by mistake. She asked to join us. All we have to do is ask her. She can decide her fate on her own.
Medea looked up at the rope network, looked onto the still dark northern horizon where the cable disappeared into the unknown. Thought of the state of Nasquat right now. If Ratzurk was like this, Rayold could be ruins too. They may never see another living soul. They may never get another chance to ask for help. She nodded.
Let's do it. Woof, good, because my arms are getting tired.
Mouth joked. Chesney placed his hand on the recess, and the device came to life. The display on the top was near identical to the one on their map. They could even see how all of Lennis was in darkness, day still, only just beginning to awaken. Something about that doesn't seem right, he thought.
Okay, this is weird,
Chesney said.
This thing is speaking right into my mind. I just need to. Whoa. I can almost feel everyone. What do you mean? Whenever I just think about a person, it's like I instantly know where they are, just for a second.
The display was going a little crazy. Little boxes were flashing on different parts of the screen, and then something red flashed.
I think you need to focus. Who knows how long this thing will last? Yeah, you're right. Let me just... Wait!
She yelled.
What about Fiery? Is she okay? Can you feel her?
There was a pause.
I'm sharp. Not sure. Now shush. This is hard.
A box was drawn in Sasquatch, right where Roki would be. The display zoomed in, closer. Then another box was drawn, and it zoomed in even closer. Suddenly, they could see the outline of Roki, the whole town. Then another zoom in. The view changed to something with strange colors, and there was an outline of a person that looked like they were laying down. A noise and crackling. Then a voice.
Hwa. Who said that?
It was Lily. The image on the display shifted, following the outline as it moved.
Ugh. Using my head is too distracting.
Chesney said.
Lily, it's me, Chesney. Can you hear me?
There was a gasp.
What on Lennis is going on here? Oh holy smokes, you've done and lost it, girl. Plum sailed right off the deep end. You're crazy or haunted or both. You're not crazy, it's really me. Me too.
Medea yelled, not really sure how loud she had to be heard.
Gah. Don't yell so loud. Okay. But then, are you ghosts? We're not ghosts. We're not there at all. So I'm crazy. Chesney, stop confusing her.
Medea chided.
How? It's not like I can even begin to explain how this works. Oh boy, this is going swimmingly.
Mouth mumbled.
Gah, there's another one. I don't even know why I'm being haunted by an old man. Lily, calm down for a second.
Medea began, still not quite sure how loud she had to be.
I'll explain. We're using some kind of technology of the Immortals. I know you can't see us, but we can sort of see you. Okay, what am I doing right now? I don't even have to be able to see you to tell you you're waving your arms around. Okay, but how do I know this isn't all just in my head? Then I'll tell you something we never talked about. Underneath Lennis is a massive network of ruins from the Great Ones. There are secret labs in both Nasquat and Sasquatch.
There was a pause.
Okay, there's no way I would have dreamed that up. Oh, thank the Immortals you two are okay.
Her voice sounded desperate and relieved.
How did you survive? I saw you. You? Are you sure you're not dead? That's way too long of a story. Yes, I am very sure I am alive. How did you and Shakan escape?
Chesney asked.
After Zagos had you, he just forgot about everything else. We were all shoved aside to make room for the fight. After I saw... Well, Shakan took me somewhere I could cast escape. After that, Shakan took me back to the pickup you guys had arranged. They let me stay there in the resistance base for a bit, but I decided to go back to Roki. Only...
Her voice broke.
Lily, what's wrong?
Medea asked. There was a sob. And more, and then she tried to speak.
Zagos, he killed everyone in Roki for letting you sneak in with them.
Chesney looked stricken and utterly pale. Medea could only imagine how the news of another massacre of a city would affect him. But Lily was not done.
But it's so much worse than that. Roki was the home of the Shimrick. Not just some Shimrick. All Shimrick. He committed a genocide against his own loyal followers, just to send a message. He destroyed an entire race.
She broke down again.
Wait, but Lily...
Chesney began, his voice tight.
If Roki is empty, where are you living? Here.
She sobbed.
I had nowhere else to go. I was too scared to leave. Too scared they'd find me. I didn't know what else to do, where else to go.
Chesney and Medea shared a look. They had to ask her now, if only to bring her somewhere safe.
Lily, listen.
Chesney began.
There might be a way for us to bring you here. We're in Nasquat right now, trying to find a way to continue the mission and destroy Dahlgren. And we could use your help. You really mean it? You need me?
She asked, her voice still choked, but clearing.
Yes, Lily, we really need you.
Medea answered.
Will you join us, please?
There was another long pause. It sounded like she was sniffing and wiping her nose.
How does this work? What do I have to do?
Chesney closed his eyes.
Hold on, I'm just working that out. Whoa! What is happening?
She said, sounding a little scared.
There's these glowy circles forming around me, like when you guys use the warp spell, but weirder. That sounds about right. Just stay still, okay?
The device started to rumble.
Oh, here we go.
Mouth shouted, then put the device down. It split apart and unfolded on the ground, making what seemed remarkably like the teleport pad Daphne had used to send them to Lagon, only a lot flimsier. There was a terrific humming noise, and the pad filled with light. Then brief flashes of light that blinded them in this near-total darkness. At last there was a high-pitched whine and a crack, and the light was gone. And there was Lily, wobbling in place before she totally lost her balance and fell to her knees.
Whoa, that was... Herc. Ugh, that kinda messed me up.
There was the same slightly older Fiorla girl, bright, shiny green forehead plate, covering her short red hair. Only she looked uneven and dirty and worn. Then she looked up and saw them there.
It's really you,
she whispered. Her face crumbled and she got back to her feet and rushed them both.
Oh, thank the great ones you're okay. How did you survive that? I saw Lokian impale you both and pin you to the ground like bugs. Let's talk on the way. I think there's a lot we need to talk about.
After a moment, Medea got what he meant. Oh my, she still has no idea what we are. This is going to be an interesting conversation.
Oh, okay.
It was strange, seeing a girl 3 years their senior deferring to them in this way, Medea thought. But now that it was done, and they had brought her to them, she was convinced it was the right call. Already her mind felt at ease. Seeing a familiar face in this dark place, a friend who needed their help as much as they needed hers, soothed and warmed some of the frost that had been building on her heart.
And, who is this? Oh, I'm so sorry,
Chesney said.
Lily, this is Mouth. We found him not long after we destroyed Amywagrin. Mouth, this is Lily. She helped us gain access to the Temple of Zagos.
They nodded and shared their pleasantries. Then she took a stronger look at him and gasped excitedly.
Oh my gosh, are you a Lubat? I've never even seen a Lubat before.
Mouth chuckled nervously.
Ah, well, yep, I am. Is that going to be a problem?
She shook her head strongly.
No, not at all. I'm sorry, I never thought I'd ever see a Lubat after Zagos came to power. Hold on, we can all get to know each other in a sec. Let's get on the rope network.
Chesney reminded them, knowing there would be a long time they'd have to catch up then. That's right, Medea thought. We need to be away from here before anyone notices us. She knew if she lingered, it would be hard to leave. Her friends, her family, her people were in danger here. But she, Chesney, and their friends, they were the only ones who could prevent the world from collapsing completely. If she stayed here, she would just get to watch the world die slowly. And if the people of Ratzurk found them here, it could start a fight she could never ever finish. Thankfully, the rope network building was very close, and they quietly snuck to the door. It was strange seeing the cabins continue to come in and leave, out into the dark unknown of the north, especially since there was no lights coming from the windows. It looked completely abandoned. Frankly, it seemed a miracle it was even operating. And if it stopped, they were well and truly up a creek. Chesney opened the door and led them inside. To their surprise, there was someone there. The attendant was huddled under some blankets behind the counter, a very small flame burning in a brazier near her. She looked like she didn't even notice them.
Excuse me, miss, we need to use the row,
Chesney whispered politely. The woman grunted and gestured up with her head.
Just go. Everyone's dead or gone. There's nobody left. It's the end of the world. Leave me alone and go.
Chesney looked a little shocked, or perhaps that he wanted to say something. Instead, he just pressed on, up the stairs. The way was dark, but the small bit of light coming from the pre-dawn sky was just enough to see by when it came through the windows. And then there they were, watching, waiting in the loading area for the next cramped cabin to come. It was time she stopped being so selfish.
You're worried about Rayold?
She asked, not even forming it as a question. He just nodded. Who wouldn't be, after seeing what had come of the sweet little town they were just about to leave?
Can't be this bad, Chesney. Trust me.
His face twisted just enough to show what he was trying to hold back.
There's no way you can know that. No, I mean it.
She grabbed his hand and tried to stay close to him, tried to offer some of the warmth she hadn't been able to offer until now.
Dahlgren, it gets weaker the farther away we are. I can still feel it right now. But it doesn't feel like it's going to grind me down into dust, either. And look.
She dragged out the map. When it activated, it showed the whole world still covered in darkness, but still showed the dots for each city and settlement.
Here's how close Ratzurk is to Dahlgren. And Rayold is way over there. There's no way it's this bad.
It felt a little like betraying her own heart to admit how bad Ratzurk was. But she knew it was her turn to bear some of this weight.
That's a good point. Thank you.
He nodded, but didn't seem much relieved. She didn't have a chance to ask about it before the next car came, and they scrambled on.
So, come on, I'm like dying to know everything that happened.
Lily asked, her legs moving like she was on pins and needles. Now that they were on their way, Medea felt relieved. She kept her gaze firmly on the dark horizon, and not looking back at Ratzurk. Every moment, some of the tension that had wound up inside her was starting to dissipate. Having Lily there, so excited to be part of things again, also did wonders. She was an amazing distraction. But when she looked at Chesney, she could tell that even though outwardly he was calm, that same tension that was leaving her was tightening up inside him. Chesney began talking before Medea could even consider how to approach what he was feeling.
Why don't we maybe go a little further back, Lily? You know us as the Nasquat terrace that tore across Asquat. But I don't think you really know why. And this ride is a long one, as I remember. So, I'm just going to start telling you a story. If you have any questions, ask them.
And so he started up his story. She didn't know why it always fell to him to explain, but it always seemed to. Maybe he felt it was part of his penance. The thought made her feel more guilty. There was another burden he had taken on without her even really realizing it. But really, it had all started with him. She just hated how it always sounded like a last confession when he was telling the story. Both Mouth and Lily were absolutely enraptured as he went on to explain their entire journey. Lily especially. He related the story first from his humble start as a student of magic to the dare that had changed everything, and how his despairing headmaster had essentially sent him off to his own death, rescuing Medea out of guilt, and them finding a connection that sent them off together. To the Skuru camp and the Purpureds when their way had been blocked by a landslide. To the tragedy of Hagudo and Smash's son, and then to Jurain. When they had related the events of Jurain, Lily actually seemed somewhat embarrassed.
I can't believe you two were able to do that, even with Dan and Zoran. It makes me feel like I should have tried harder to become a mercenary. I look back at how I was just, I don't know, waiting for life to happen to me.
Medea spoke up.
No, don't feel like that. We were put in an impossible situation. Just because we did that doesn't mean we should have had to. We very nearly died there. That's not something any 16-year-old should have to face, let alone US. To think Jurain so nearly fell.
Mouth said thoughtfully, stroking his beard.
I'd heard the mayor was useless, but I didn't think he would be that useless. To send children. Still, you two are incredible. What happened next?
Chesney began again, this time explaining their trip through the wilds of Nasquat, through the Luba town of Dobor, finding Daphne, and when their quest was truly given purpose and direction. Both Mouth and Lily asked a great deal of questions once Strabo came into the picture, though focused entirely on different things. Lily practically jumped up from surprise and was insanely jealous that Wilde had joined them for the ride of a lifetime. Mouth was very interested in the descriptions of Cormu's sword and of Strabo. Medea could tell he wanted to ask so much more about them, but for the moment he would be silent and let him continue. Then came Barsus and how they had nearly been lynched there. The minstrel tent, the stealth mission that had turned into a bloodbath at the Helm Temple, and their near destruction at the hands of Zagos's assassin squad. Then, sneaking into the throne of the Immortals to get Cormu's armor. Medea could feel the tension rise off of Chesney as he slowly related what had been revealed from Joanne. You could hear a pin drop as he told them they were the second coming of Cormu and Sophie. And then Lily exploded with questions.
Is that why I instantly saw you and was thinking you were interesting? What did he mean you were the second coming? What does that mean? Are you them reincarnated? Are you their kid?
The wound she thought had long healed over tore just a little under the girl's questions. She knew this was only a stark reminder to Chesney that there were still many unanswered questions about them both, and that they were fast approaching his home to possibly answer them. Chesney explained what meager information Daphne had explained to them, and then how their mission had taken a complete swerve when they learned that Zagos was building his own Dahlgren. Noigren. Their trip under the world, and then finding Joyce and Misuto, who showed them how to blend in.
Oh my God, that's what you two reminded me of.
Lily groaned.
It had been bugging me for so long. Kiowa bread.
Medea tried to remember Joyce as the bright, vibrant woman that had helped them when they really needed it, and not her ultimate fate. Chesney continued. This time, how they had been interrupted on their journey to Karen by the Resistance, their capture, and the mission to Conshudo that had taken a very dark turn. Lily seemed deeply disturbed.
Wait, that wasn't a lie by Zagos. No. It actually happened, just like I said. Zagos just glossed over why it happened. The pressure, the desperation I was under to get back to my mission, being torn away from Medea, it was all a factor. But when I saw what they were doing to that woman, having a whole festival, treating her like a sick toy, torturing her, I snapped. I couldn't understand how an entire city could be so vicious and cruel. After that moment, they stopped being people. They were just monsters.
Medea could see how much he regretted that day. In all honesty, her own opinions of the people of Asquat were not high. Could she have possibly found a way to free Wind in a more bloodless way? Possibly. But she also knew that, based on what Chesney had told her, she would not have mourned what happened. But she had not been the one to do it. Perhaps if she had, she would share his pain. For now, all she could do was soothe his
Nobody gets to judge Chesney for what happened that day in Conchuto. He was placed in an impossible position,
she said.
Nobody can know how they would react in that situation.
Lily nodded uneasily but agreed to drop it. As for Mouth, Medea couldn't decide exactly how he felt about it from looking at his expression. She decided she did not care. Then came Karen. Lily seemed positively ill the longer they went on, explaining what had gone on in that hellish place. Lily's next question came out in a squeak.
You're telling me ghosts are real? I kinda thought you two were maybe embellishing things a little in the Raya temple thing under Jarain, but was Karen really filled with ghosts? They're real, and they're terrifying,
Medea offered, shivering at the mere remembrance of how chilling and desolate the entire region had been. Let alone the tower. Let alone Joyce. The longer they explained the events of Karen, the more ashen Lily became. She may have even stopped breathing by the time they had explained the harrowing fight with Garana, and Joyce's ultimate fate. And then, the final fight for their life against the Firesore, before they had been found near death by the 2nd Resistance Unit. Then the plan to infiltrate the Temple of Zagos. They were going to skip over the events Lily already knew, but Mouth reminded them that it was all news to him, so they briefly touched on those moments as well. Then on to their resurrection, escape, and mad dash to reclaim Cormú's things, and the final confrontation with Lokiarn in front of Noigren.
Cormú, slayer of monsters. You really slew that horrible thing?
Lily asked. When they nodded, she turned to Mouth.
You weren't there, you didn't feel what it was like to be near it. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I had seen a true monster. Just staring at it felt like being locked in a room with a serial killer. I would be lying to say my sleep hasn't been filled with nightmares since then. But I might sleep a little easier knowing he's dead. Unfortunately,
Chesney said, looking at nobody.
Lokiarn destroyed all of Cormú's equipment, and as we soon came to find, finding a replacement will be no easy task.
He went on to explain finding Mouth, the revelations of the underground ruins, the Lifeform Research Lab, the Dahlgren manufacturing facility, Dahlgren's growing power, and lastly, the collapse of Ratzert.
And that's it,
Chesney said, his voice a little raw from the long use, and the emotional toll of his latest confession.
Now we're headed to my home, hoping my mother knows something that will help us, or send us on the right path. Holy Mother, knew this was a big deal, but this is Lake. How are you two? Well, I guess all of us now, the only ones doing anything about this,
Lily said, looking a little overwhelmed.
Well, the short answer is nobody else can do it,
Medea answered simply.
Nasquat doesn't have a strong government to assemble a resistance, and say Asquat is wholly controlled by Zagos. Yeah, if it's not us, it's nobody.
Lily nervously tapped her knees.
I just never realized how much bigger than Zagos this all was. I thought he was really the only big problem facing the world. I wish that were the case. In the end, he was just a really unfortunate obstacle in the way, one that might have doomed us all now that Cormú's things have been destroyed. We need to speak with my mother, hope she has information on another weapon or way to destroy Dahlgren and Kmat, and then we need to destroy them both.
The sky had brightened up all during their long conversation, and the first rays of sunlight peeked up over the ocean to the east. Now, at last, they could see the north shore, and it was fast approaching. Medea had never gone north herself, so she was surprised to see that this relay point just ended. There was no town here, no settlement. It was simply a drop-off point into the wilderness. This is the journey to Daphne all over again, Medea thought. Only this time, there weren't even guards to see them off. The rope network relay station looked utterly abandoned. It was dark, and the lands about it overgrown with long grasses and shrubbery. Chesney noticed. He said,
All right, everyone. This is it. After we get off, I have something to say.
They waited in silence as their cable car was swallowed by the dark mouth of the building. None were surprised to find nobody waiting to collect them when they got out. The floor was covered in a fine layer of dust and dirt that could have only accumulated by weeks of abandonment. It really was a miracle it was still operating.
After this point, I don't know what will happen. I don't know what the North is like anymore. It wasn't the nicest place to begin with, and I can only imagine it's gotten more savage.
He looked to Mouth.
Mouth, you've been a great help to us, but I'm going to ask you this one final time. I know your true love is exploring ruins and discovering Lennis's forgotten past. What we are going to face past this point will likely lead to all of our deaths. We're going to go up against things nobody has faced for thousands of years, and we might just not be strong enough to face it. If you want to leave, I won't stop you.
Mouth nodded sagely.
Chesney, I know we haven't had a lot of time to really understand each other and our motivations. But the whole reason I started investigating the ruins of the Immortals was because I feared for the world. I felt deep in my heart that something important had been forgotten. So I spent my youth searching in vain for answers I only now know would never have been revealed to me without both your help. But that was all in service to my true hope. I wanted to save Lennis. I grew strong to save Lennis. In short, I'm with you. I need to see the future with my own eyes and fight for it with my own hands.
Chesney then turned to Lily.
And you, Lily. I know we just called you back, but that wasn't fair. You didn't understand everything that was at stake, but now you do. So I'm going to ask you this too. You have first-hand experience seeing just how easily the best-laid plans and intentions can be dashed by the powers of evil in this world. What we're going to go and face out there. It's something worse than Zagos, and I don't know if we'll be strong enough to face it. I'm so happy that you're okay, and I want you to stay that way. Nasquat isn't so bad a place to start a new life if you want. You're welcome to fight with us. In fact, we'd love to have you. But you need to decide your own fate and not feel obligated to help us because of anything. What do you say?
Media could see a whole parade of emotions walk across Lily's face. They all waited patiently for her to find her words to say what she needed to say.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared.
Lily began. Her words came out haltingly, like she was still putting them together even as she spoke.
But I've been scared for a long time. Every day since I saw you two fall, I was just waiting for the sound of boots to come and take me. Every single person I knew in this world is gone now. My mother and father, my relatives, friends and neighbors. They're all dead thanks to Zagos. All he left me with is my revenge. I thought when I finally could put down that feeling, I could move on with my life, become the person I always wanted to become. But now I realize that was a lie I was telling myself. The truth was, I was really afraid of what I was without that Hattie.
She looked down, her voice near breaking.
You know, when you called out to me, I was already so on the edge. Every day that went by was another where I'd just given up, and I cursed myself for not even trying, just waiting for it all to end. And then I heard your voice, heard that you needed me. And do you know my chest hurt? Stupid, right? Why? But it took me until just now to understand why. It was joy. The joy of being needed, of feeling accepted and wanted, and seeing something good happen in the world. And the feeling was so unfamiliar, my body didn't even know how to feel.
She looked at them both, and her face was full of sincere vulnerability.
When I look at you two, I see. I don't know how to even say it. Hope. Not just for the world, but for me. I see the hint of what could be possible. A second chance. I want to fight. Not for myself, but for someone else. Everyone else. More than anything else, I want to be the kind of person that gives that feeling of hope to another person. I want to be the one that can put down her feelings, accept myself, and move on with my own two legs. So, if you'll have me, I really want to fight alongside you both. I want to be...
Her voice trailed off to be so quiet it was as fragile as the tinkling of a distant chime.
The person I always dreamed I would be when I was a little girl.
Seeing that hurt, that vulnerability, it reminded Medea so much of all of her own doubts she'd faced. How would she have fared if Chesney hadn't been there to support her? Would she have given up and died in Hagudo? Died at the hands of those merciless assassins? Would she have even left Retzerk without him there to prompt her to go? They, more than anyone, knew the power and mercy of second chances. Medea walked up to Lily and held her in a hug.
Welcome to the team, Lily. We're lucky to have you.
Lily hiccuped at that.
Thanks. For more than I can ever thank you for.
After that, they separated, and she rubbed her eyes clear. Chesney was there with a hand.
Welcome aboard. I'm counting on you. You fight like a real demon.
She took it and grinned as much as her face would allow.
Oh, you just wait. I'll really knock your socks off.
After that, they went downstairs. Indeed, the whole building was deserted, and looked like it had been for weeks. Grasses had overgrown the entrance, and if there had been a path from there, it was no longer visible. All four of them stood together, looking at the savage wilderness before them, their backs to the dark ocean churning against the cliffs below.
You're right.
It was Chesney.
I can barely feel Dahlgren from here. You don't look any less worried, though.
Medea replied. He closed his eyes and breathed.
Close your eyes. Listen. Feel.
She did, and the longer she did, the more that the skin on the back of her neck began to crawl. It was like climbing Denebra Mountain, the deadly escape to Barsus, to the snowfield in Karen. That desolate feeling, that deadly feeling, bloodlust, everything, everywhere, power, danger, death.
Kmat has been here,
he said at last. He held his arms, cringed.
I can almost feel that heat again. Smell the ash. I think it knew we'd come this way. What are you saying? Whatever we find out there, it will have been twisted by Kmat's influence. This is not going to be an easy trek. It's going to be a fight for our lives.